I don't even know where to start this one. From the moment the iPhone 16 became official last September, something about this generation just fell off. Mainly because Apple had done something that they had never done before. They announced the phone before it was all the way finished. See, the big upgrade for iPhone 16 was Apple Intelligence, their fresh set of AI features, which I'm sure you've heard about by now because they have been talking about it constantly. Yet somehow we're already 6 months into the iPhone 16, or over halfway through the product's life cycle, and Apple Intelligence isn't all the way done yet. The phone still isn't finished. So what's going on? Well, as it turns out, the reason Apple hasn't finished the rollout of Apple Intelligence is because they don't know how to. They literally can't deliver on what they promised, and the more I've looked into this situation, the crazier it gets. Because I gotta say, at this point, it just kind of feels like Apple lied about the iPhone 16. Let me explain. Now, to be fair, between October and the present day, we have gotten most of the Apple Intelligence features that they initially unveiled. I mean, they're not great, they don't work particularly well, but yeah, as promised, Apple delivered on things like notification summaries and photos cleanup and writing tools and image playground. You can use all of that stuff right now on your iPhone. But let's be honest, all of what's currently available has been done before by other companies, and none of it is particularly game-changing, except for Genmoji. I do mess with Genmoji. No, really for the past 6 months, we've just been waiting for the 3 big AI features that Apple showed off. 3 actually unique upgrades that no other company is close to that Apple said would be available on the iPhone 16. First, a smarter Siri that understands your personal context. Second, on-screen awareness, so Siri can see what you're looking at. And third, in-app actions where you can ask Siri to use your apps for you hands-free. I mean, the initial examples alone for this stuff looked really impressive. You could just ask about your mom's flight information and it would pop up right in front of you. Siri would just know things about you like your driver's license number, and you could even color correct a photo by only using your voice and nothing else. I just can't overstate how big of a deal Apple made these 3 features in particular out to be. There were the other Apple Intelligence features, and then there was this stuff. So for months, we sat around and we waited. October comes around, Apple drops the first set of AI features, but none of the big stuff. Then the second round, we get like image generation, Genmoji. Okay, kind of cool, but still not the big stuff. And then it's January and February, and there's nothing. And then in March, we finally get an update. Apple issues a single statement quietly to just one media outlet and says this. It starts out referencing the features that are currently available and then says, quote, "We've also been working on a more personalized Siri, giving it more awareness of your personal context, as well as the ability to take action for you within and across your apps. It's going to take us longer than we thought to deliver on these features, and we anticipate rolling them out in the coming year." I'm sorry. What? I wanted to make sure I read that word for word just so I wasn't confused. It looks like the useful stuff it's not coming to the iPhone 16? In other words, we promised these features for the iPhone 16, but they're actually going to release a year from now when the iPhone 17 is going to be the newest phone. There's no way around it. This statement is bananas. It sounds like it was written by a child, because you might notice what's not in the statement, which is any sense of apology, any sense of ownership or accountability, and most importantly, still no concrete release date. Apple says we anticipate them coming in the next year. Well, you also anticipated them coming to the iPhone 16, which isn't happening anymore. So what do you actually know? Actually, do you know anything about these features? Are they working at all? We don't know. So there you have it. Clear as day, Apple lied about the iPhone 16. Except it's not that simple. I mean, to be completely fair here, we don't actually have concrete evidence at this point that Apple did intentionally mislead to or lie about these features. Maybe they really thought they could figure it out. Or, I don't know. I've done some more research, and I gotta say, after what I found next, I have a really hard time believing that this was just, oops, we thought we could do it. What I found legitimately blew my mind, and more on that in just a second. Speaking of my mind being blown, that's exactly how I felt when I started using NordPass, who sponsored today's video. NordPass is an intuitive password manager for businesses and individuals created by the experts behind NordVPN. It's powered by the latest technology for the utmost security, and it completely changed the way that I work with my team. Like for years, I just used the same password for everything, and then I would send that to people that needed access to the accounts. And if you're following along at home, that's a recipe for how you get hacked, which is exactly what happened. With NordPass, it's totally different. I love the design of their stuff. It is incredibly easy to use, and it allows me to generate these incredibly secure passwords that I don't have to remember by heart because they're securely stored here. And now when someone from my team needs access, I can share the password with them directly inside of NordPass and see what they've been up to with the password. To get 20% off on NordPass Business with a 14-day money-back guarantee, use code AppleTrack at nordpass.com/AppleTrack. Huge thank you to NordPass for sponsoring this one. Now, let's get back to the rest of the video. Okay, so I went back and I took a much closer look at the iPhone 16 marketing. And I believe that Apple knew from day one that AI Siri, that was the feature that would convert into sales. Which is why all the way back in September, out of the 3 first ads that Apple made about the iPhone 16, they showed off AI Siri first. In the ad, a woman is out at a cafe when she sees a guy she's met before but can't remember his name. So to jog her memory, she uses AI Siri to ask who she met there a few months prior. And instantly, Siri shows who it was, saving the day just in time for her to greet him by name like she never forgot. It's a brilliant ad, which is why I was shocked to see that Apple recently deleted it from their YouTube channel. Yeah, it's been wiped from the internet completely. It seems like Apple wants us to forget that they ever promoted this as an iPhone 16 feature, because if you remember that Apple promised you something that they didn't deliver on, well, that exposes them legally. See, it's not just this one ad that Apple removed, though. They're covering their tracks in other places too. Less than 2 weeks after they announced these Apple Intelligence delays, Apple got hit with a major class action lawsuit citing false advertising practices. And again, I noticed something really interesting that happened right after they got caught. I noticed that when I was browsing the iPhone 16 website, something looked different now than it did early on. For context, when the iPhone 16 Pro first released in September, Apple prominently displayed a version of AI Siri on their website that understood personal context. And for months, it looked just like that, at least until Apple announced the recent delays. And then they quietly added this little descriptor that said, actually, this is an active development and it's not officially here yet. But it was still the same screenshot front and center that was being used to sell these phones. But then they got hit with the false advertising lawsuit. Exactly 6 days following the class action filing, I noticed a huge update on the iPhone 16 web pages where Apple straight up removed all mentions of AI Siri in their entirety. Notably, they finally replaced the original graphic with a more generic Siri screenshot, a watered down one that showed a current feature instead of a future one. So to summarize, the only point in this entire saga where Apple actually changed their behavior was when they got sued and millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars were suddenly on the line at the class action level. Because here's the real point I'm trying to make about the iPhone 16. We are never gonna know if Apple actually intentionally lied about the iPhone 16, but it sure feels like they did. It sure looks like Apple lied with them covering their tracks. It sure looks like they were misleading by keeping things up on the website for months. It sure feels like Apple wasn't being honest. We don't know if they are, but that's what it feels like. And that's gonna be the legacy of these phones forever. You know how people still think Apple Maps is bad, even though a decade later, it's way better than Google Maps? 10 years from now, when people talk about the iPhone 16, they're not talking about camera control or the thinner display bezels or the battery life. They're gonna talk about the disaster rollout of Apple Intelligence. Maybe the craziest part of this entire story, though, comes via some external reporting. Like, according to one article, when Apple showed off AI Siri for the first time to the public, there were members of the Siri team that were also seeing it for the first time as well. See, engineers at the company were told that Apple was working on some AI Siri stuff, but all they ever saw working was the rainbow animation around the screen, which suggests that everything Apple showed off that day was just a concept or a mock-up. They didn't actually have a reliable working model of this. It was just an idea at the time. Yet they still went ahead and for months unashamedly promoted this as if it was just around the corner, when it never actually was. And I gotta say it, I know it's cliche, I know it's overused, but I'm currently reading the Steve Jobs biography, and if Steve Jobs saw the way that this Apple Intelligence situation was going down, he would have a meltdown. Accountability would be taken, people would be fired, and most importantly, he would have made sure that this never happened in the first place, because you never show off something that you can't deliver. You just don't do that. To end this video on a positive note, we're all gonna get Subway gift cards from the lawsuit settlement worth like $9 in a couple of years. So get ready for that. By the time the iPhone 20's out, you're going to be eating a Subway sandwich and maybe a cookie. So maybe we should be thanking Apple, actually. Thank you guys for watching. This is the whole video. I've been Sam. This is the last I'm talking about Apple Intelligence. Goodbye.